Hi folks, it's Gary here, and we're welcome back to the fourth official look here on YouTube. Joining me on this special video is an old friend of the fourth official from the Unholy Trinity Everton Podcast. Once again, it's our good friend Mike Richards. Mike, it's good to have you back.
Delighted to be back, yeah, and probably a bit more positive than when we've spoken previously after obviously Everton's decent start of the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, we spoke to you last time after the announcement of Kevin Thirlwell as the new Rangers sporting director, and we got loads of insight from you in terms of Kevin's time at Everton. Um, Last week, the end of the transfer window, we saw a very close synergy with Youssef Chermiti being the big deadline day acquisition for Rangers, and a deal that could be worth up to about 10 million, which would make him the second most expensive player in Rangers history. So we felt it was worthwhile getting Mike back on to give us a bit more insight into what £10 million has bought in Youssef Chermiti and why some Everton fans may be disappointed that he's left on a permanent deal.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. I think the permanent transfer. I think all the noise from the club was that they were looking to get him a loan. He's a player who is been unfortunate with injury since he's come in from Sporting Lisbon, but a player that I think that we all had high expectations of as he developed, and as he got used to the Premier League, as he got more game time and things like that. He started the previous pre-season off really well, and then he got an injury, and he literally, he came back at the back end of last season, to be honest. But it was very much, as I say, that the club were looking to get a loan for him. There was certainly some Championship clubs, some clubs on the continent as well who were after him on loan. But then Rangers came up with a deal. They wanted to bring him across permanently. Obviously, Kevin Thelwell was probably a major factor in that. The man who was responsible for getting the deal with Sporting Lisbon, and at the time when he was brought into Everton, it was very much a deal of convenience in the sense that Sporting Lisbon didn't want any kind of down payments. That the first payment was due 12 months later, and when we were in that particular financial situation that we found ourselves in, it suited us. So it helped in that respect. However, the attributes that he's got, we all thought that he was going to be primed to be a decent Premier League striker. So probably a bit of a surprise. It's been a permanent move, but it allowed Everton to have a little bit more wiggle room in the market later on, allowed us to bring in, obviously, Merlin Rule, the German midfielder, on deadline day as well.
So in terms of the type of player that the Rangers are getting, as I say, £10 million in terms of Premiership prices is probably the type of money that Premiership clubs can usually spend on a bit of a punt, a player who can develop it and hope for the best with it. In Scottish terms, as I say, it's the second most expensive transfer in Rangers history, and we've seen Celtic across the city with Adam Ida, who came from Norwich for a similar fee of around 9 million, and that big fee kind of weighed quite heavily around him. His neck last season for Celtic, and they never really got what they felt was great value for him, albeit they've managed to sell him on to Swansea for 7 million and made most of their money back on it. So, what are Rangers getting for their 10 million in Youssef Chermiti?
From what I've seen, obviously he had a fair few appearances off the bench under Sean Dyche when he was fit, and I always felt that he had something about him in terms of, he had that little bit of a burst of pace. He's a big, strong lad. He holds the ball up fairly well, I would say. I think he carries the ball well. His link-up play is good. Obviously, we didn't see him score a goal in competitive football, which was a shame. I don't think I'd be overly concerned by that as a Rangers fan, because it's, as I say, his injury record. He's been really unlucky with the injuries that he's had since he's come to the football club, and I think you are going to get a player who will be probably primed for Scottish football. I think he'll probably start scoring quite early on. And I don't think the price tag, as you say, from a Scottish football perspective, it's big. From an English perspective, it's not. We bought it for more than that, so we've taken a bit of a loss on him. Probably from a PSR perspective, it's probably a sort of balanced the books, in the sense that obviously he's a couple of years into his contract, so we balance things out there with the deal that we got. But I don't think that any kind of price tag will weigh heavily on him. And as I say, the size of the lad, he's an athlete as well. I think he'll start scoring goals early on, and I hope he does. So I wish him all the best.
In terms of positions for him, is he a nine and only a nine, or is there other parts of places on the park that he could possibly play?
Yeah, I think if you operate a front three, I'm sure that he could go out wide as well. He could play in a two up front. But he's got that pace. Defensively, you're not going to get much from him. He's very much an attacking player. You look at the way Everton play, and we have a centre forward, and we have a number 10 behind, and we have one either side at the moment. Obviously, Jack Grealish and Man Jai. The two of them have a little bit of defensive responsibility, but Chermiti, you would be looking at that very much a forward-facing player. But I wouldn't say that he couldn't play. He couldn't play out there. He certainly got the attributes and the pace, I think, to play out wide in a three if needed. As I say, he'd be comfortable in a two as well. And I think that he's fairly versatile in that respect. As I say, mobility, I think, is probably one of his main attributes. And for me, from what I've seen of him, I do think he carries the ball well. So looking to sort of counter quickly, he'll be probably good for that kind of system as well.
Yeah, Kevin Thirlwell talking to Rangers TV this week, suggesting that a lot of Rangers recruitment potentially could be in line with maybe going to maybe like a 3-5-2 type formation. So potentially that kind of two up top. We've obviously signed Bojan Majovski from Girona, former Aberdeen striker during this window as well. So potentially there could be an opportunity then for them to play two up top. It's not really something you see an awful lot of these days as a two up top type formation, but potentially I know it's a formation that Kevin Thirlwell does like.
Yeah, at Everton, you only tended to see the two up top if we were chasing the game. We've very much been a lone striker club in terms of our formation, Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Beto. Those would be the sort of main two in recent years you'd start up front. But I certainly think, as I said, he can operate in a two. It is unusual for sides in England really to play with two up front now. It is very much a case of you have a front three, don't you, with one central striker. But yeah, giving them a bit of support in the final third and alongside him will probably help as well to create a little bit more space for him. But I think, as I say, I think it's going to be well suited for Scottish football. And obviously, you had a tricky start of the season yourself, so hopefully he can get you out of a little bit of a hole and bring back some positivity to Ibrox as well.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. In terms of the start of the season for yourselves at Everton, obviously brand spanking new shiny stadium at Hill Dickinson, and a bit of positivity about the place. It's been a decent start, and I think given the frustrations I think that David Moyes had around recruitment, certainly some good business done in the last week or so for you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's been a good start after the disappointment of the first game of the season against Leeds, where we were miles off it. But you could argue should have got a point with a very dubious penalty awarded to the home side later on. So we could have been sitting on 7 points from three games, but ultimately we won the next two. We won our first home game, which I think was really important. Moving to a new stadium, you don't want that hanging over you for too long that you can't win a game of football at your new home. So I think to beat a side like Brighton, who were a decent Premier League side, was really encouraging. And we weren't great. They had chances, Brighton. Obviously, Jordan Pickford saved the penalty as well. But we took the 3 points and then took it into a midweek Carabao Cup win against Mansfield and then onto Wolves and won again. So, winning's a habit. And it's a good habit to be in. And, given the fact that in the three previous seasons to this one, we got a total of 1 point combined over those three seasons in August. It's a much more positive start for ourselves, and I think that the positivity around the club is welcome. I think it's been there since David Moyes came back to the club in around January time, and the new owners obviously have come in as well. Just before he came in, we've moved into the new stadium, which is the best in the country, in my opinion. So all's looking good, and when you've got players at the club now, the likes of Jack Grealish, who's come in, who's set the Everton fans. Everton fans alike, basically, with his football, with his ability, the fact he speaks so well and so highly of the club and just wants to play football. Dewsbury Hall's come in. You got the likes of obviously Man Jai, who was there last season. We've got players now who excite, which is really important as well. And we want to look forward now and not look back. And we've had too many years of disappointments and off the field issues and battles with the Premier League and concerns around the existence of our football club. So it's nice to be in a bit more of a positive mindset now, and as I say, looking forward to a decent season this season.
From a Scottish perspective, one player who didn't get his move was Nathan Patterson. Had been heavily linked with a potential move out to Spain with Sevilla. Didn't quite happen, but he's a player who's not seen an awful lot of football, I think, over the last 12 months, and certainly injuries haven't helped with him either. But a player who, I think, looking at that Everton squad, not too many natural options, I think, at right back. So if you can get him fit, then hopefully, certainly from the Scottish national team perspective, we will certainly want Nathan Patterson playing football again. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes over the next kind of few months.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the concern with Patterson is one is his injury record has been horrendous since he's come, and that's been a real concern. Is that when he started to put a few games together, he then gets injured and then obviously has a setback, and it takes him a while to get back. And I think the only real manager who's fancied him was Frank Lampard. To be honest, I think Lampard was very encouraged by him. Very much a modern day fullback who likes to get forward and probably the attacking side of his game was better than his defensive side. And obviously, from Sean Dyche's perspective, he didn't like that. He's very much a sort of older style manager who likes his fullback to defend. And Moyes, to be fair, Moyes gave him a few opportunities last season, and I don't think he overly impressed. So at the moment, he probably finds himself fourth in the pecking order behind, obviously, Jake O'Brien starting there currently. Did do for a large portions under the manager last season. You've then got obviously Seamus Coleman, who's I think he's 36 years of age now, but he's in there. James Garner just been playing left back, but he's played right full back and right wing back. So he's probably going to find himself fourth in the pecking order. And I know he's not happy. I think he wanted that move. I understand that he wants to go and play football. Of course he does. And I think it was Sevilla were the ones who were making all the headway in terms of a move for Patterson, but it didn't quite come off because the dominoes didn't fall in the right direction with the players not moving and so on and so forth. So for him, it's frustrating, of course. He's got to try and keep his head down. He's got to try and stay fit, which is really important. And if he can do that and he gets an opportunity, then take the opportunity because, like you say, we haven't got a natural right back in the better sense of the word. You've got Seamus Coleman who should have been replaced 3 or 4 years ago. We all love Seamus Coleman. He's been a fabulous servant for the football club, but he shouldn't be a starting right back at the age of 36. He should have been replaced years ago. Jake O'Brien is a 6'6" centre half, and he's playing right back. And as I say, James Garner is a central midfielder. So Patterson, you'd think, it'd be the ideal opportunity for him to try and take the opportunity to come in and play some football. But I don't think David Moyes has been overly encouraged by him in terms of what he's seen. So, we'll see what happens. I do think that, it might be the case of another loan move materialises for him in January's transfer window. I think Everton are going to be in the market potentially for right back then as well. But it's a shame, because when we brought him in, we all thought he could be the heir to the Seamus Coleman throne, and it just didn't happen for a variety of reasons.
We're needing one to replace Tav, so we'll take him back up the road if we can get him fit. I think that.
I think I said. When I was on him and talking about Kevin Selwyn, I think I said to you at the time, it wouldn't surprise me if you came back in for him over the course of the summer and he went back up to yourselves up at Ibrox there. So I was a bit surprised that didn't happen. Whether obviously you're being put off with the injuries since he's moved, I don't know. But naturally,
maybe as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe getting him back home and getting him back into an environment he feels comfortable as well could help him. Maybe that's also an issue. You do find it with players, don't you, when they move, and especially when they're a little bit younger and they struggle to adapt to a new environment and a new club and a new league. So potentially for a move back up to yourselves could happen, and who knows what's going to happen in the first few months of the season. That would dictate where the club's coming from as well.
Yeah. In terms of following Everton for this season, obviously the Unholy Trinity podcast was where we found you. So if people want to get a bit closer to Everton this season, where can they find you?
Yeah, across all the usual podcast platforms. So obviously your Spotify, your Apple. We do a bit on YouTube from time to time. But just throw it into Google and we'll come up. There's only one of us. I think it's quite a unusual name, so we tend to come up. But across on social media as well, across X or Twitter, at UHT Podcast, at UHT Podcast Everton on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Facebook. Just type it in, and they'll come up. So there'll be clips on there. There'll be photographs and videos from the matches as well, which obviously with moving to the new ground, that's always quite exciting thing for neutrals to see what that's all about. And there's so much going on. We're busy, a lot of content's going out, and we're enjoying what we're doing at this moment in time.
And we really appreciate you coming on to speak to us here on the Fourth Official. A big thank you to you out there for watching us as well. Stay tuned here to the platform. Very special interview with former Rangers striker Marco Negri coming up in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that one. Plus all the usual matchday coverage as we go now. Search for the first win of the season. Big thank you to Mike for joining us on this one. We'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.